Good afternoon from Tel Aviv and welcome to I-24 News' ongoing coverage of Israel at war. I'm Ariel Levin-Waldman. We open with that developing story, that terror attack that took place just south of Jerusalem. 3 terrorists opened fire at a checkpoint and 6 Israelis were shot. All of them were members of security forces, and at least one of which is in critical condition. 3 terrorists were neutralized on the scene. They were heavily armed, M16 rifles, pistols, and axes, as well as fake uniforms to disguise as soldiers. Security forces believe they intended to carry out a much larger scale attack deep inside Israel.
The terrorists were armed with M16 rifles, pistols and axes, and a huge amount of ammunition, which indicate that there was intention to probably carry out an attack on a completely different scale somewhere else, and only vigilance of the policemen who were at the checkpoint resulted in the thwarting of such an attack.
And witnesses captured the very moment of the attack on cell phone cameras. You can see right here some of a gun battle between security forces and terrorists. And we are now joined by Master Sergeant Dean Elsdon, Israeli Police International spokesman, joining us from Jerusalem. Dean, good to have you with us. Tell us what we know about this attack and what we know about their plans.
Well, we're still in the preliminary stages gathering the evidence, but what I can tell you is that this morning, 3 terrorists were heavily armed with M16 rifles, with handguns, and a large amount of ammunition arrived to the tunnels crossing that leads inside of Jerusalem. And thanks to the vigilance, the professionalism of all the security forces that were here, both Israel Police, Border Police, and IDF, including private security guards, they were able to thwart a much larger scale from taking place. These terrorists opened fire on our security forces, and our security forces, with sheer professionalism and determination, engaged them, managed to neutralize them, and large police forces then later arrived to the scene to secure the perimeter. We put a helicopter in the air. We brought K9 and bomb disposal units to secure the perimeter and make sure that there were no other threats to the civilians in the area. I just want to emphasize that when we speak about the police and the border police who are on the home front, saving and defending our civilians against terror, this is what we're talking about. This terror is acts against innocent civilians, and our officers are going to do whatever it takes, even if it means being the bulletproof vest for our civilians.
Dean, can we construct at this point a timeline of how this went down and what the response was like in real time?
I'm not going to get into the details because, as I told you, it's preliminary investigation. But what I can tell you is that approximately 9 o'clock this morning or so, the terrorists approached the checkpoint, the crossing, with a vehicle, and the license plate of the vehicle was indeed confirmed to be stolen. And the suspects themselves, 3 individuals who we can now confirm are from the Hebron area, raised the suspicion of the officers, and that's what we believe initiated the gunfire, initiated the gun battle that prevented the larger scale attack from taking place inside of Jerusalem itself.
Dean, is there a heightened level of alert around the country now? Is this suspected to have been part of a larger plan or isolated?
I can tell you that we are at war right now. Together, we're going to win the war, and we're not just saying that for no reason. The police officers, IDF soldiers are standing at a heightened state of alert because we're defending our families. We're defending our homes. And that's what we're going to continue doing. And God willing, we're going to get through this together.
Okay, thank you very much, Dean. And it's good that you have your men out there right now. Now, we're going to discuss this more in studio with Rafael Yerushalmi, former senior intelligence officer with the IDF. Rafael, we've been discussing the danger being posed by forces within the West Bank all morning long. Ultimately, we're seeing this start to flare up in these incidents like this. I guess the last question I had for the police is the same one that applies to you. Are these isolated, or is this part of a larger coordinated effort to create a new front?
of late in the West Bank, there is not real palpable, tangible coordination, but there is an unspoken coordination. They do not need to send messages, if you will, or call one another from faction to faction, from cell to cell. They know that this is the order of the day. The order of the day, whether you belong or not to the Hamas and the Islamic Jihad. In this case, the cell comes from Hebron. Hebron is a stronghold of the Hamas. People have understood that everybody is expected to perpetrate a terrorist attack, no matter where, how, and who you are. So in this particular case, we avoided something very dramatic, because what is also understood without being said in so many words is that a terrorist attack in the same mode as the 7th of October, meaning violent, cruel, ferocious against innocent civilians. The order is clear. It was given clearly to the Hamas cells, but it is also understood by other cells not depending on Hamas that this is the goal. Not just kill somebody in the street, but kill him with the most possible violent way. It should look atrocious, it should look bloody. That is the new trend, if you will, of the terrorist activity. And this is a huge threat for our civilian population, because they are the targets, not the army, not the police, the civilians, and especially the people who live in the settlements. They have to be very well protected right now.
We're going to continue this discussion in a brief moment, but first we're going to bring in the full updates of that war in Gaza. Israeli forces gaining ground in the south. The military announcing they have captured Hamas's docks, a combined raid by the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and the engineering forces across multiple buildings used for terror activities. Hamas has previously attempted aquatic infiltrations into Israel and makes very extensive use of seaborne smuggling routes to bring in weapons. This alongside an important morale victory. Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh's house destroyed in an airstrike. It's just one house out of many that was built with billions of dollars of stolen international aid money, and it served as a meeting place for senior Hamas leadership. Hamas has previously said that 2 of Haniyeh's other homes were destroyed, but this is the first one that has been confirmed by Israel. The IDF also showed this evidence of Hamas's militarized hospitals across Gaza, a clear violation of all rules of war. This was found at Shifa Hospital. Hamas weapons, military equipment, intelligence technology. All this came after revealing another vast cache of explosives, advanced weapons, and hostage holding cells found at the Rantisi hospital just a few days ago. The Israel Defense Forces announced that 2 more soldiers were killed in the fighting yesterday in northern Gaza, bringing the death toll in the ground operation to about 50 now. The Biden administration has continued to reject any calls for a ceasefire, though they have been pushing for more short-term humanitarian pauses. Biden said this war will only end once Hamas is made powerless. And we are going to return to the studio to discuss this a little bit more. Major operational changes on the ground. Dock works captured. We've seen Haniyeh's house blown up for, I think, the 3rd time now. And we're talking about raids, the destruction of Hamas's parliament. These are all very good optics victories. They give Israel a sense of victory, but a sense of victory and actual ground accomplishments are not the same thing. We're only about 5 weeks into the war now. We have not seen any major top-level Hamas senior officials taken yet. Ultimately, how much is left to do in northern Gaza, and ultimately how much will be finished there?
So, first of all, destroying the parliament and the villas of the rich leaders of the Hamas is not just pleasurable, it is useful. We are destroying the symbols of the regime, the symbols of dictatorship. The Palestinian people of Gaza realized that they were held hostage by these rich and powerful fanatics of the Hamas. It dissociates them from the terrorist organization. They understand very well that they're getting rid of this horrible regime. So it's all in all, it's got some kind of use. It's not just for us to shout, victory and glory. It's useful. The commanders of the Hamas Hamas are disconnected from reality. And this is due to the fact that we have now hampered the communications inside the Hamas. The chain of communication, the chain of commands are ruptured, and there's no way for them to know what is happening above ground. We might have a problem with the tunnels because we don't know where they are exactly, how we're going to find them, what we're going to find when we go in the tunnels, but they have the same problem the other way around. They don't know what's going on above ground. They have no idea what is happening in Shifa Hospital. Is the hospital evacuated, not evacuated? When are the IDF troops going to strike and where? All these, they are in utter ignorance. And also, as I said, they're also disconnected from the reality of the situation, meaning in their mind, in the mind of Mr. Sinwar, for instance, they're doing okay. They're doing well because they've forced us to come into Gaza, where they hope to entrap us. They are forcing us into a long war that is costing a lot to the Israeli economy. They have created havoc in all the normalization process with other Arabic countries. They have achieved a lot of things, and they have created a huge trauma for the Israeli population and the Israeli security forces by this so-called success of the 7th of October, which was, by the way, now we discover a complete failure because their plan was to reach even the West Bank and the other cities in Israel. So they only achieved 10% of what they wanted to achieve, which is horrible enough, of course, a huge catastrophe for Israel, but they had in mind much, much more than this. So they think that, and that's why the army has to continue and apply pressure. This is the only way, but we have still encouraging signs. First of all, more and more in the Gaza Strip, the opposition to Hamas and the normal population are hating Hamas. That's it. There is no more support for the Hamas. So that's still an achievement. And the Hamas will not come back into power, not only because the Israelis won't let it, but because the Gaza people don't want it to come back. So I think this is a big success. The rest will be to continue the pressure, because the encouraging sign is the start only, I'm very careful about this, the start of negotiations towards the liberation of the Israeli hostages. Until now, until a couple of days ago, the Hamas was not really negotiating. They were just playing with us, and they were cynically torturing us with this story of the hostages. Now they're really entering the bargaining process. It will take a long time. This is the Middle East, you know, the bargaining will take a long time, but they are in it. So this shows that they're starting to be quite disquieted, and they are starting to change their strategy. So it's just a confirmation that we should put the pressure on more. We should continue exactly to do what we are doing. We should destroy all the symbols of this horrible regime, all the symbols of the fanatical Islamist, jihadist, all these monuments, you know, that chant the glory of terror should be destroyed. So all it's, we know that this war is also psychological. We know that it's not just the weapons that speak. There is a lot going on in the media. There's a lot of signals sent this way and that way. Same with Hezbollah. Half of our war with Hezbollah is military, and the other one is more like psychological. By the way, right now we have good news. After what I asked for a few days, to be proactive instead of reactive, we have now, at this moment, an attack of the Air Force under Lebanon that is proactive, not answering an attack from the Hezbollah, not out of the blue, but I would say initiative of the IDF to strike the Lebanon right now with our Air Force.
And before we continue this discussion, we are going to turn our eyes to the southern border. Our correspondent, Pierre Clochonler, is standing by just outside of Sderot, overlooking Gaza. Pierre, give us the latest in the battle on the ground there.
Right, I'm going to show you with Dean Barenbaum the small sector of the northern part of the Gaza Strip, which you can see here, which is quite active right now. You have on the left of your monitor a white screen. This is a smoke screen. Rockets from the Israeli Air Force were targeting some area there, and probably there are ground forces in the area that need that smoke screen in order to operate safely. And then on the right of your monitor, you're going to see some gray smoke, and this is from a bombing. It doesn't seem to be an Air Force bombing, maybe an artillery bombing. And this is close to the vicinity of the Indonesia hospital, which is one of the hospitals that have been encircled by the IDF and contains still in it patients, medical personnel, and also some population that displaced itself and seek shelter in that hospital. And for a few days already, the Indonesia hospital has been the focus of some of the IDF bombing. Not the hospital itself, but the vicinity of it. Now we hear that there was fighting not long ago near the University of Gaza City, and then earlier on overnight, the marina of Gaza City was taken over. 10 terrorists were killed. 10 shafts of tunnels were neutralized. What we also know is that on the humanitarian front, it's quite active also. 2 areas of Gaza City, Shejaiya and the Turkmen neighborhood, are benefiting from a tactical humanitarian post. The residents are urged to move to the Salahuddin axis, which is open from 9 to 4 p.m. local time, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. for 6-7 hours, like every day. And other neighborhoods of Gaza who are still the focus of operations, also there, the Israeli army urged the residents to move aside, to go east of Gaza City to the Salahuddin axis that could bring them to safety, or to more safety, at least in the southern part of the Gaza Strip, because in the central and southern part of the Gaza Strip, there's still bombing, such as in Khan Yunis earlier, and that bombing has been going on since the 7th of October, since Hamas inflicted a war on Israeli territory.
Well, definitely a lot of action on the ground behind you, Pierre. We're going to be back with you as that situation changes. Stay safe out there. That said, these terror groups aren't just located in Gaza. A massive counter-terror raid in Germany just took place. Police raided 54 locations suspected of Hezbollah-related activities. Germany's Interior Ministry opened an investigation of the Islamic Center of Hamburg. They've long been under observation by German intelligence services, saying that the Islamic Center promoted revolutionary Iranian doctrine and supported the proscribed Hezbollah terror group. The Interior Ministry said German intelligence believes that the Islamic Center exerts significant influence or full control over some other mosques as well as groups, and that they promote a clearly anti-Semitic and anti-Israel attitude. Said authorities are examining whether it can be banned, and materials seized during these searches will be evaluated. It's worth noting that earlier this month, Germany implemented a formal ban on activity by or in support of Hamas, and also dissolved Samadun, a group that was behind a celebration of Hamas's October 7th attack, following this pledge made by Chancellor Olaf Scholz after the attack. Now, for much more on this, we are joined by Polina Garv, our Berlin correspondent. Polina, it's good to have you with us. What do we know about what exactly was found in these raids?
Well, police is not sharing any sort of specific information regarding the nature of this alleged support that this organization and also 5 other organizations in Germany that are suspected of being linked to it, what kind of support it was offering Hezbollah. We don't know just yet. We also don't know exactly what was seized during these raids. But as you said, the hope is that this will be sufficient evidence to ban this organization, to ban its activity on German soil, which has been the subject of much criticism, especially in Hamburg. For many years, local politicians have been hoping for such a ban, complaining exactly about the influence that it's been exerting, the Iranian-inspired influence it's been exerting that contained, of course, strong anti-Semitic and anti-Israel elements. This is part of an ongoing trend that we've seen in Germany even before the war in Gaza started, where Germany is trying to minimize the influence that foreign countries like Iran, like Turkey, and like Saudi Arabia have over its local Muslim community, even launching local programs to train imams in Germany to make sure that the messages that they then pass on are in line with Germany's constitutional values. This seems to not have been the case with this organization, and the two especially major mosques that it was operating in Hamburg. Exactly what as it was seized, as I said, we don't know just yet, but the hope is for politicians that this will be enough to institute such a ban, to ban this organization the same way that Hezbollah has been banned in 2020, and therefore any sort of support, be it financial or ideological, is enough for authorities to take action.
Paulina, when we're talking about large-scale raids like this, are we talking about simply things that go against, as you said, the German constitutional values, or was there a very legitimate intelligence threat that there were imminent attacks being planned by Hezbollah supporters?
Well, at least according to the information provided by the Interior Ministry, the precipice for this raid has been simply from part of the investigation that this organization is violating Germany's constitution and goes against its values. There has not been any specific information regarding a planned attack or any sort of strategic tactical support that was lended to Hezbollah and its activities against Israel. But as I said, that's enough. Simply ideological support, not to mention fundraising that we have seen on German soil in support of other banned organizations. That is enough for the German authorities to take action. Even such large-scale action, we're talking about 300 officers taking part in raids across 7 federal states, 54 locations. This is quite a significant raid indeed.
Definitely, and as that information goes public, I'm sure we're going to have you back to explain exactly what was found. Thank you very much, Paulina, for breaking that down for us.
Thank you so much.
We are now joined to talk about another topic, that is the massive nationwide effort to bring back Israel's kidnapped people, hostages of Hamas. It's been the topic of so much discussion here in Israel and so many different ways of showing support.
Welcome to this breaking news edition. I'm Benita Levine, coming to you live from Tel Aviv. Israel is intensifying its operation to eliminate the Hamas terrorist organization nearly 6 weeks since their terror onslaught in southern Israel on the 7th of October. The IDF is today stepping up operations at the Shifa Hospital, Gaza's largest medical facility, which it maintains is located above a Hamas terror command center. It's a complicated operation, eliminating terrorists while making sure civilians aren't hurt. The IDF has been delivering incubators and medical aid to that complex while allowing safe passage for those who can flee the fighting. Overnight, IDF fighter jets destroying the Gaza home of Hamas political chief Ismail Haniyeh, a home that was being used as a meeting place for senior terror leaders. The IDF also capturing the Hamas harbor in Gaza. Senior defense correspondent Jonathan Regev has more on the discovery so far inside Shifa Hospital. Let's take a look.
In any normal place, hospitals are where lives are saved and illnesses are cured. Gaza is anything but a normal place.
If you follow me behind the MRI machine, I'll show you what our troops exposed just minutes ago. In military terms, this is a grab bag, grab and go of a Hamas combatant. And if you zoom in and we get some light over here, what you'll be able to see is military equipment. There is an AK-47, there are cartridges, ammo, there are grenades in here, of course uniform, and all of this was hidden very conveniently, secretly behind the MRI machine.
The MRI machine is just one hiding place, along with various others.
And when our troops opened this closet here, which is in the main part of the clinic, this is what they found. These weapons have absolutely no business being inside a hospital. The only reason they're here is because Hamas put them here, because they use this place, like many other hospitals and ambulances and sensitive facilities inside the Gaza Strip, for their illicit military purposes. So there's Kalashnikov rifles here, even ammunition.
The war of narratives is a difficult one. Even after these images, Israel understands very well there will be those who try and undermine this evidence.
Inside the very same cabinet that houses medical equipment, you can see all kinds of standard military medical stuff. We found another go-to bag, this bag here. And again, we opened it up in order to make sure that it's safe to touch and show. So please don't give me any of that. You opened it up and you placed it there. This is the bag that we found, and this is the stuff that was in it.
This is what was found in the hospital building itself. The assumption is that there may be tunnels under Shifa Hospital used exclusively for terror purposes, and much more such evidence could be found there.
So for more insight, we welcome to studio military and strategic affairs analyst Yaakov Lapin from the Jewish News Syndicate and Miriam Institute. Yaakov, thank you so much for being here. Let's start with that report we've just seen. Certainly not the normal equipment one associates with a hospital. What do you make of what was shown there by the IDF's Jonathan Conricus?
So we were shown a significant number of firearms, AK-47, cartridges, grenades, Hamas protective suits, ceramic vests, and tactical radios and laptops, which were used likely for command purposes for commanding cells. Now, I think what we have to keep in mind is that this is what was left in that MRI department at Shifa Hospital after Hamas vacated, after it took off its uniform, put on civilian garb, and escaped. Perhaps they escaped through other means, but they also escaped with civilians. So this is what they weren't able to take with them. So let's try to imagine what was there before the IDF arrived, likely a lot more. This is obviously a Hamas terror base that was set up in the hospital, and my assumption is that as the IDF moves forward and takes more and more control of the hospital, scans it, it's a large compound, they're going to find much more evidence, likely underground in bunkers in that compound, about what Shifa, was really used for.
Talk to us about the technology involved here. We're talking about an underground network, a terror command center. As you say, it's a massive complex and it's going to take time. What kind of technology is involved in getting to that underground center?
The IDF has a whole host of intelligence that it can use to try and find the exact locations of these bunkers. It can use visual analysis, looking for irregularities, on the surface area. It can use human intelligence when it gets it, interrogating prisoners. It can use electronic communications that were intercepted. So it can put together this sort of comprehensive picture by piecing together the various parts of the puzzle. And then based on that, they will move forward. And they're moving very, very slowly because Shifa is, of course, a very sensitive site. It is also a real hospital. There's no obvious question about that. And it's treating people, and it should continue to do that to the extent that's possible. But it doubled up as a Hamas terrorist base. And so this explains the IDF's very slow taking over of the site as it continues to deliver humanitarian and medical supplies to the hospital all at the same time. So we have to be patient, but I have no doubt that we'll see much more coming out of Shifa in the coming days.
A complicated operation indeed. Yaakov Lapin, stay with us. There's much more to discuss. But right now, let's go to our team on the ground. We cross first to our correspondent, Pierre Kloschendler. He joins us from southern Israel. So, Pierre, rocket sirens sounding in some Gaza border communities in recent hours, including Kfar Aza and Nahal Oz. What is the latest in southern Israel, and what's the latest across the border as that fighting continues inside Gaza right now?
Right, as you mentioned, the last rocket strike on communities facing the northern sector of the Gaza Strip, Nahal Oz, Kfar Aza, which were sites of massacres on October 7, was at 11:22 local time, a.m. local time, to be precise. The other rocket attack in the southern part facing the Gaza Strip in Sufa was, and Nir Yitzhak, was at around 9 a.m. local time. Since then, it's been quiet. In the back here, facing the Gaza Strip, the northern sector of the Gaza Strip, the front is very active. Although the IDF has already claimed control of the northern part of the Gaza Strip as well as Gaza City, there are still pockets of terrorists and infrastructure and tunnel shafts, and all that is part of the ongoing activity in the background. There was just a recent explosion in the vicinity of the Indonesia hospital that has been a focal point in the past 2 or 3 days. Buildings around the Indonesia hospital where there are nests of terrorists have been bombed relentlessly, and it seems that there is some sort of cooking pressure tactic on the hospital to extract the medical personnel with the patients and the people who displaced themselves in the compound of that hospital, because the IDF believes that, as in Rentisi Hospital or Shifa Hospital, this is also a hotbed of Hamas infrastructure. Now, there's been also, please, Benita.
No, continue as well, because there's much concern, obviously, Pierre, about the humanitarian corridors for people who want to flee from the fighting. What is the latest on that front, Pierre?
Right, you're talking about the humanitarian front, and indeed it is a front for the IDF, and it goes in conjunction with the operations. What's going on right now is that, as in every past day, there is the Salah ad-Din axis, which sections the Gaza Strip from north to south, east of Gaza City, which is a humanitarian safe passage for the population that has remained trapped in the battleground. And there is a special call for the residents of some neighborhoods of Gaza City, such as El Tufah, Daraj, Shejaiya, Turkmen. All these neighborhoods, the residents are urged to go towards Salah ad-Din and move south of the Gaza City River. In addition, there are 2 localized humanitarian poses in the fighting in 2 neighborhoods of Gaza City, in the Turkmen neighborhood and Shejaiya, which is east of Gaza City, facing Nahal Oz. And there, from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m., you have a humanitarian post. Now, what's more intriguing is that overnight, the Israeli Air Force dropped flyers in East Khan Yunis, in villages such as Khuza'a or Bani Suhaila, and urged the residents to move and seek shelter south of Khan Yunis. Khan Yunis is in the central part of the Gaza Strip, and that's not part of the ground offensive which started in October 27. That means that could foretell of the enlargement of the ground offensive to those to Khan Yunis. Why Khan Yunis? Khan Yunis is very important because it controls the central refugee camps of El Burej, Nuseirat, Dir el Balach, but it's also the hometown of Muhammad Def and of Yahya Sinwar. And these 2 men, who are actually the leaders of the military branch of Hamas on one hand and of the political branch of Hamas on the other inside the Gaza Strip, these 2 men may seek refuge in the place that they know best, amongst the people that they trust the most. And therefore, Khan Yunis becomes suddenly a focal point. Now, there's been targets killing not killing, but bombing of terror targets inside the central part of the Gaza Strip and as well as the southern part of the Gaza Strip near Rafah. But it seems the focal point of the next stage of the invasion, stage 3, would be maybe, according to the flyers that the residents got overnight, the central part with Khan Yunis.
Thank you so much. We will be coming back to our correspondent Pierre Kloschendler in southern Israel. Stay safe, Pierre. We will be getting more updates from him in the coming hours. And still in studio, military and strategic affairs analyst Yaakov Lapin. So I want to pick up on what we just heard from Pierre there. These flyers being disseminated around the Khan Yunis area. We've been talking about the northern Gaza Strip for weeks now. It seems the focus is also going to turn to the southern part of the Strip. Talk us through the significance of what fighting will look like there and this new landmark, so to speak, of Khan Yunis.
So look, there's no question in my mind that the ground offensive is going to sooner or later head south. Okay, just to put that, at the top of everything else, it's going to head south. There's no way that the IDF is going to say, look, we're finished in northern Gaza, now we're withdrawing from the Strip. No, this is going to continue throughout the entire Gaza Strip, and it's going to be done section by section. But I think what the IDF wants to do now, before it begins moving south, is to make sure, first of all, that what's left of the Hamas terrorist army in northern Gaza cannot reposition itself and rebuild once the IDF starts moving south. And that's why I think we're still seeing all of these strikes occurring on the ground, from the air, from the sea. The naval forces are very much involved in this as well, taking out harbors, which the Gaza harbor, which was a central base for implementing terrorist attacks and trying to sneak terrorists over into Israel northwards. So we're just seeing the systematic elimination of Hamas targets, whatever's left of them, and making sure that they cannot be rebuilt. And then when that is done, I think we're going to see the center of gravity of this offensive start to move south into the areas that we just heard in the report.
Another interesting target was that of the home in Gaza of Ismail Haniyeh, which was apparently a location where senior officials used to meet and have discussions about their next plan of action, so to speak. That being taken out, what is the significance of that? What does it mean? And what is the message being sent there when a home like that is destroyed?
Well, look, it was used, for operational planning and implementation of terrorism, so that makes it a military target. But it's also more than that. It's symbolic, and it's sending the message that there's simply no place for Hamas, either the regime or the terror army, in the post-war era that will follow. There will be no place, that was used, no site that was used, overground or underground, that will remain intact. And the IDF is simply going through its entire target list and eliminating everything overground and underground that was used by Hamas to perpetrate this massacre and plan further atrocities. So the message is there's no room for Hamas, not overground, not underground. Ultimately, it's a simple message, and we're seeing it implemented throughout the entire war every single day.
Yaakov Lapin, stay with us. Much more to discuss because there are several fronts in this war. And now, talking of which, let's go north. Our correspondent Zach Anders is in northern Israel. So Zach, sirens sounding in the northern community of Shtula earlier, warning of incoming rocket fire. What is the latest update there? And I understand more developments across the northern front as well. What can you tell us?
Right, and we're still working to bring confirmation if those strikes did impact or cause any injuries. Right now, the IDF has not released any more information. They have, however, said that they have used their fighter jets to strike locations inside Lebanon once again. Of course, this would be a very large headline in weeks before October 7th, but since October 7th, this has been a very frequent event with the Israeli Air Force in simultaneous action with ground operations, outgoing artillery, which we have heard throughout the morning, striking, the IDF says, these Hezbollah positions just over the border. And again, that red alert was in for Shtula in the morning hours, and we're still working to bring more information about potential hits or injuries.
Give us an idea, Zach, of the number of residents, people who live up close to that border who have evacuated in recent weeks, and your sense of the number of people who are still choosing to stay close to the border regardless of what is going on as we speak.
Well, if you speak to some of the IDF forces, the soldiers that have been up here for some time, they will tell you that things have kind of slowly started to see some people want to return. There was that initial push of people when about a week after October 7th, when the activity here on the northern border really did heat up and heated up very quickly. A lot of people did evacuate. Of course, many still have evacuated and are in locations all throughout Israel. Many have been provided accommodations through the Ministry of Tourism. They're in hotels, but others feel feel as though they don't have that option. They cannot leave either their homes or their communities. They're trying to maintain, their livelihoods here. So some of the IDF soldiers that are manning these checkpoints and mostly telling people, it's probably the best that you turn around or that you don't continue on into XYZ territory or community. Some of them have told me that they are seeing more people that want to return, but their message hasn't changed. The IDF and the ministries here continue to tell people, no, it is not safe. This conflict is continuing to escalate, and that they are better served and safer in the southern central parts of Israel.
Certainly sounds like that is the case. Appreciate the update. Correspondent Zach Anders, live from northern Israel. More to come from Zach in the coming hours. Yaakov Lapin still in studio, military and strategic affairs analyst. So much has been made about Hassan Nasrallah and when and if he decides to get fully involved. How much of that is up to Iran? Give us a sense of what is at play right now.
Right. And, this report reminds us that out of the 250,000 or so internally displaced Israelis, 60,000 of them are from the north. And they absolutely have every right to expect a clearer solution about their safety going forward. When it comes to, Hezbollah and Iran decision-making, we can try to go with one theory, which is that Iran has instructed Hezbollah. Hezbollah is, completely funded and sponsored and under the auspices of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And Iran has made good on its investment by telling Hezbollah, your job in this war for now is to keep Israel distracted, to not allow Israel to fully focus on its mission of destroying Hamas. But, and there's a very important but here, don't go past the threshold of war. And as a result of that directive that we're seeing from Iran, we're seeing Hezbollah so far basically keep its attacks within a certain area of the north, and we're seeing Israel reciprocate in a certain area of southern Lebanon, with both sides exchanging those blows. Of course, this entire conflict in the north is initiated by Hezbollah in Iran, and Israel is responding, and both sides are attempting to stop it from turning into a full-scale conflict. But that doesn't mean it won't happen. As the Americans like to say, unintended consequences. This entire situation is rife with the potential for unintended consequences, and therefore, even if the Iranians have told Hezbollah keep them distracted and don't do more than that, it could easily at any moment turn into something more than that. One rocket, one retaliation, one mistake, and we could be in a full-scale situation. And that's why I refer to the northern arena as the elephant in the room. Even if we assume that they're not looking for war, we could just as easily find ourselves in one anyway.
Certainly a very troubling elephant in the room, as you put it. Yaakov Lapin, stay with us. Much more to discuss. We've got news just in. The War Cabinet is set to meet tonight. We're hearing amid reports of progress on a hostage deal. That coming through just moments ago. The War Cabinet meeting in the coming hours tonight, local time, amid reports of progress on a hostage deal. And talking of which, it's been more than 5 agonizing weeks for the relatives of the 239 hostages still being held by the Hamas terror group in Gaza, all abducted during that brutal terror assault on the 7th of October. Families have been marching to Jerusalem with a message for local authorities and for the world. Our correspondent Pierre Steckelbach is with them on the way to Jerusalem. Pierre, what is the latest there? What can you tell us? What are the families saying?
Right, Benita, as you can see, supporters of those family are gathering here in the city of Modi'in. The march itself is expected to arrive in a short amount of time. They have started their march in Tel Aviv on Tuesday, and they're expected to arrive to Jerusalem on Saturday, where they do want to rally in front of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's residency in order to really apply also political pressure. But what we've been hearing from them is that this is also a way to keep in action, to keep in motion, because this has been really an agonizing 5 weeks for them. We're speaking about 239 people, stories, lives, names, and of course family members who are left without anything to do or anything really normal life for 5 weeks now. So this is a way of them to keep moving, both politically, but also to just keep their movement and also get together with other families here, and also to show their presence on the roads of the country, just like here in Modi'in. And I'm here with Shai Newman. He's a resident of the city who decided to come here and show his solidarity. Shai, can you tell me again, why did you decide to come out today?
I came here to support all these families. I feel all the ache and the sadness of them, and I'm with them and with all the other citizens of Modi'in to let them feel that we are with them and we support them, and we really want, just like I said before, that all the hostages will come as soon as possible. Although there is war and there are soldiers there, we want them back, we want them here, we want them to be with their families, to be happy again and to feel life.
Now, do you think that a rally like this, a protest like this, if you will have any political implications? Will that cause anything? Will that cause any political action?
I think that every person here in Israel that's coming to support in every place, it's another support, it's another koach, another strength that bring the hostages back and bring the reality to be again just like it was before.
All right, Shai Newman, thank you very much. And just like Shai, many people here from the city of Modi'in have come together with Israeli flags just to show their empathy and their solidarity with those dozens of families who are on their way since Tuesday, really. They're expected to arrive here to the municipality very, very soon. And the plan is to visit the family of Noa Marziano, an IDF soldier who was kidnapped into Gaza. Her death was announced 2 days ago. The families are going to visit that mourning family there in their home. And after that, they will continue their march to Latun, where they will rally this evening, and tomorrow they will continue their way to Jerusalem. Again, they have been on their feet since Tuesday just to create a sense of togetherness, to create a sense of action, to create a space where those families can connect and to be together and to actually do something instead of just waiting in these really unimaginable 5 weeks that are behind them. And of course, on Saturday to arrive to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to show their faces there and to make their demand once more heard to return the hostages as soon as possible and to apply all political pressure that is able to be applied there in that unimaginable situation for these families that are expected to arrive here very soon. Benita.
And Pierre, as everybody knows too well right now, the 239 hostages include babies, children, women, the elderly, peace activists as well. And now we're hearing more and more reports about a potential hostage deal. What is the sentiment about that potential deal, what it will involve? Some families say all hostages or nothing. What is the latest feeling on the ground in terms of what it's going to take in terms of some kind of deal to get these hostages back home where they belong?
Obviously, Benita, for all of those families, the first priority right now is to get their loved ones back, for many, whatever it takes, because again, these families have been without their loved ones, without any notification about the situation their loved ones are in for 5 weeks now, 41 days since the kidnappings. This is an unimaginable situation. So there are people who say, okay, they would agree to a hostage deal, they would support a hostage deal that would first and foremost achieve the release of women and children first. There are those who really are pressing for the release of all of the hostages at once. So there are different sentiments here on the ground. But obviously, for each and every one of them, the first or the biggest wish that they have right now is to hug their loved ones again and to be reunited with them, and also to just receive a message about them. We've also been hearing the demand to let the Red Cross access those hostages in Gaza just to cater to their medical needs, especially when we speak about the elderly and children. And also, of course, we do know that there are people who have medical conditions that need to be attended to in Gaza right now. And again, not only that they did not see or did not hug their loved ones for the past 5 weeks, they have been without any notification about their situation, their health situation as well. So this is also one of the major demands to achieve the Red Cross to visit those hostages that are in Gaza right now.
It's unfathomable to think that these families, in many cases, don't even know if their loved ones are alive or not, never mind their particular health conditions and efforts to get medication to them. For now, thank you very much, correspondent Pierre Steckelbach, live from Modi'in on the way to Jerusalem. More to come from Pierre in the coming hours. Well, we're taking a very quick break now. When we get back, our breaking news coverage continues. 2 minutes and we're back. This is I-24 News, Breaking News Edition. Stay tuned.